What's up, guys? I think I screwed up the first video, but I'm going to leave it the way that it is because the audio is pretty good. I think that there's some good things to talk about in that spot, so even though you can't see some of the hands or whatever, the discussion there was good. But now, the part 2, we are here, and we can see both of the videos. So we have started over, thankfully. I'm glad I noticed that. I'm not really sure. The recording equipment has this like red peppermint candy cane looking thing on the outside, and I noticed that it was just off in the distance and didn't cover one of the tables, and I was like, what in the living hell? So if you guys just, I haven't double checked it, but I'm pretty sure that there's only one table showing despite all the audio in the last video. So I apologize for that, and I do think that the audio was good enough that we're just going to leave it that way, and you guys will just have to suffer through. And there wasn't really too much going on the other table anyway. But let's just jump into this table and see how this one goes. That kind of sucked. That's ridiculous. Like, what kind of shit is that? You know, what's wrong with this guy? Comes up in here. He shows us one table. He's talking about hands we can't see on the other fucking table. But yeah, no, the strategy content was pretty good regardless. So I think you guys will have to just accept it. Just have to deal with it. Anyway, we've got the Space Mexican folding. We have Ace Jack offsuit. We're gonna raise it up. And we have the Ace of Hearts here, and we do block some of the Queen combos they would have with the Jack. So we're going to start by betting, even though this is a three-way pot. And we are going to basically triple barrel off if we hit a heart, and sometimes give up if we don't. I'm going to bet relatively large because it's a dynamic board texture that has all kinds of hands that people can call with. That is a relatively poor card in the sense that a 7 or a 5 are going to be more likely to call. 5x of diamonds improves some other straight draws, have flush draws now, and even though there's less queens in the deck, it's more likely that somebody's just floating around with queen 3 or some shit like that. So we're going to lose this pot the majority of the time. We check back and we see the ace, and you know, this is still pretty bad. I mean, we have the... He could have ace 7 or ace 5 and be betting. This is just going to be a queen a lot of the time from the small blind. I think I'm going to call here, but I think I should be folding this mostly. I'm kind of mostly calling just because... Oh, never mind. I guess I'm just timing out. I gotta like, note that at this site, I just time out way too much on this fucking site. So we're going to focus on making a decision, and then we'll talk about it. So I'll just kind of make my decision and just... go from there. I apologize, folks. We just keep timing out, and it's my fault. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise. And when that guy calls over there, I kind of feel like he can have a very wide range, and this Andrea person has been jibber-jabbering about bluffing this Guerrero guy. So it seems like a pretty good spot to put in a 4-bet. And, well, now we're just going to give up. If we had the ace of diamonds, we'd shovel. If we had the jack of diamonds, we would shovel. But here we just don't really have any options since we get called by both players. It looks like we've run into king 10 and ace 6. Okay. That was a pretty good value bet pre-flop as we get we get some pretty nice loose action in that spot. And they made it easy on us. We're going to raise it up with the queen 9. We're going to limp the king 9. And on this board, we're going to just check and give up. This doesn't really want to go in any of our ranges. And now they are really, really unhappy. Don't really want to gamble. You can take my remedial raise, and that's okay with me. We'll get it eventually. They might just be shoveling any ace in that spot. It's hard to say what someone on tilt with a weaker mindset will be willing to do. Could be anything. Could be anything. Now they're limping the very next hand. Emotionally driven play is not where you want to be. You want to remain mentally stoic. You want to be stoic as fuck. But it is difficult to attain that. It is. Because poker is going to challenge you mentally in so many ways. It's going to make you think you're a bad player when you've done nothing wrong. It's going to make you think you're a good player when you've done nothing right. Poker is a game that's constantly going to challenge your mentality. It's going to challenge the way that you treat yourself. It's going to challenge a lot of different things that have nothing to do with the game mechanics themselves. You could take two poker players of one being slightly better than the other guy, and if the other guy's better at all of the mental variables, he's probably making more money than the better technical player. So technical skill at poker is just part of taking poker seriously, especially if you aspire to be a professional poker player. That is a completely different story. You're going to need personal management. You're going to need all kinds of skills outside of just game mechanics. You're going to have to take care of yourself. You're going to have to be in a good mental state. You're going to have to be able to take the monetary swings without having all of the crazy cognitive, neurotic fucking, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. Like, the brain constantly wants to evaluate these things. Your brain is going to nitpick at every little thing and is going to create emotional distress. You are going to build the remnants that are going to sit there. They're just going to sit there and they're going to build up. And finally, like a volcano, it's all going to come out, and you're going to find yourself check-raising king-jack on 6-7-3 because it's better for your range, and wonder how the hell he had the set that time. And that's not where you want to be. That's not where you want to be. That's where you want the other guy. So when you're at a table and you're wondering, where's the money coming from at this table? Where's the money, Lebowski? You can look around and say, well, I can beat this guy. This guy's pretty bad. And I can beat this guy. This guy's pretty bad. You look at the other two players, you say, well, these guys are just as good as I am, and maybe they're better. How are you going to get better than those guys? How are you going to get an edge in that spot? Even if you can create just a tiny win rate against a player who otherwise is beating you, that's going to make your table far more valuable. And if you're constantly picking spots like that, then you're going to make more money in general. And that, at the end of the day, is kind of the bottom line. Personal management, good poker skill set, put in the hard work, and make some damn money. We get min 3-bet again by this Guerrero bro, and we're just going to flat call with our 7-3 suited. We don't have any way to interact on this board whatsoever, and I'm not entirely sure of what his range is. We're going to go ahead and start firing like crackheads. Apparently he's min 3-betting, and then he's checking the ace-high flop, and he's giving up. That's a good read for us. That's a good read, and that's why I bet, because I have no idea if he's going to be sneaky enough to check an ace. Clearly, he's been 3-betting enough that his range is really wide, and he doesn't know anything about us not having an ace or having an ace or whatever. And we are going to go ahead and 3-bet here against the Space Mexican. This is definitely a bluff. We got an Aoki dog that just sits down, and yes, this guy's under the gun, but he could isolate here with a really wide range, and this is going to be one of our better blocker hands, so I'm just going to be 3-betting as a bluff. And then when he shovels over the top, we're just kind of stuck, just kind of folding. Unfortunately for us, they have ace, king, and pocket tens, so we get kind of unlucky. But this does have the best blockers here to queens, kings, aces, and ace, king. So I do like using this as a 3-bet bluff in that spot. You don't really want to call 4.5 big blinds there pre-flop. You just kind of want to 3-bet, take the pot down, have some bluffs in the spot, and if you get re-raised, life is easy. You just fold. You have kind of a... I mean, that's a spot where you don't really have a linear range either, as far as your 3-betting goes, because you're not going to be 3-betting, you're not going to be 3-betting like all those middling strength hands. That just happens to be a particularly good blocker hand to a hand that would stack off. So it makes a lot of sense to be bluffing in that spot, specifically with king, queen. But clearly he makes our life easy, puts us in a position where we can just get out of the way, real smooth, real quick. And I like to play. I go back and do it right now. Let me get that 3-bet bluff. And he makes it 6x, which is fucking weird, but nonetheless we have a pair of 5, so we're going to call. And we have a precarious board texture where we are probably going to peel the flop and then give up. And even this, you should probably err on the side of folding. Like, this is just barely good enough. And that, it makes it a little more difficult because now we're just not going to see as many 8s. So now he's saying that he has 9s plus. And I think that we can end up folding here. And the reason why, and what I'm going to kind of use as the tiebreaker, is that I kind of feel like my opponent in this spot, yeah, we're just going to fold. I kind of feel like my opponent in a spot like this is going to be of the mindset like previous, like he 3-bet us pre-flop, a small 3-bet, and then he checked an ace-high flop and he gave up. It might not be on his mind to be bluffing like a madman. I don't really like calling the 6x raise, but we are in the big blind with a pair of 5s, and this is 10 and L after all. And I don't really like calling the flop versus a pot-sized bet, especially without a diamond in my hand. So like I said, you guys can go ahead and fold there and make that conservative fold. But, you know, we're just going to go ahead and at least peel the flop and then go from there. Definitely not all that awesome. Much rather be in position. That way he can check to us on the turn some. We can check back, take a free card, play a river. A lot of good things can happen. And that's basically all we'd be calling for. I could still just probably fold the flop, honestly. Just not really going to get to showdown that often when he's potting it like that, you know. And especially when he's like betting pretty big on the next street. So we'll take a mental note of it. We have Queen 8. We get called, and we have a good backdoor flush draw with an overcard. Just a pretty good spot to be c-betting and barreling whenever it makes sense to. Barreling on a lot of different cards, really. Checking some, betting some. It's a good spot to employ a mixed strategy. We have the 7-5 offsuit and the 7-8 offsuit, which will not be played today. Sorry about that, guys. That is my bad. You are going to have to come back another day. You know that's what they say about the rain. Like that's definitely the rain right there. 5-7 offsuit. And we got pocket queens. Probably going to 3-bet space Mexican if he opens. And we're just going to put the old 3-bet in of the pot-sized variety. You can definitely scale this up if you want to and try to give a more polarized, difficult situation to your opponent where their middling hands are not always going to realize their equity. It makes it very difficult for them to play a hand like pocket 10s, for instance, when you make it a little bit bigger. And you get to bluff more when you make it bigger. We'll be getting it in on this board texture. I don't really want to let Chris realize any of his equity with his overcards. He still has a full 6 out. It's going to be like 15%. Plus, he's got probably some 4x and some 6x combos. So there is a lot of cards on this board that are going to be able to kill our action. And that's definitely one of the cards that we don't want to see. However, there's so many middling pairs here. Just realize, guys, that even if he has ace-x of diamonds, ace-4, ace-6, when he calls pre-flop, he's heavily weighted towards pairs. Ace-king would have got it in. So we are just going to value shove. And if he has an ace, then we're boned. But a lot of the time, we'll get a call there from a hand like 7s, 8s, 9s, some of that type of shit. So I think that when you see a scare card like that, it's important to realize, again, going back to combinatorics, the entirety of your opponent's range and not just a fraction of it. What aces does he have in that spot? Does he overcall a 3-bet preflop with ace-4 or ace-6? If he does, they're suited, so there's not that many combos of them. And does he have ace-queen? Not very often. Ace-king probably gets it in preflop. So we're looking at ace-queen, not very many combos, maybe ace-jack suited, ace-10 suited, maybe a few suited aces, and then we're going to see a lot of 10s, 9s, all of those middling pairs on that board. 8s, 9s, 10s, maybe even jacks. And we're going to fold here with the ace-5 offsuit. So it's a pretty good spot for us. Pretty good, pretty good. I like having a mixed range when there's so many draws on the board texture on the turn. This is just sort of lower than some of the other hands in your range. I mean, if our opponent, obviously we don't have a ton of ace-x combos in that spot either. We have some flush draws, like ace-king of clubs, ace-queen of clubs, diamond combos some percent of the time. We have some aces, but we don't have a ton of aces. We still have a lot of bluffs, so we're going to have to value bet thinner. I probably would have just called here. Probably should have called in that spot. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, we've got the ace-jack. Kind of unique spot. Chris is playing a lot of hands. One hand, we could 3-bet, which is probably a bit too light. He's a bit on the unpredictable side, so you don't want to put them in situations where their unpredictability works well because your range is wide. And we're in the small blind facing a 7x open, so I think we can just fold. I think that our hand is playable, and we are folding the best hand sometimes, but think about the way the hand is going to progress out of position in a bigger pot like that over the course of 3 streets. We're just kind of screwed. Betting too many flops results in too big of a pot. And checking too many times is going to result in him winning the pot. So it's just we're just in a bad bad scenario, no matter how you look at it. And whenever you're in a bad scenario like that, just using caution makes the most sense. So this dude has $1.77. We're just going to triple pot shove here. If he has a 6, he's never folding anyway. We're getting all the money in anyway. And we do have a flush draw. It doesn't work out for us this time, as our opponent does have a 6. And there's not that many 6s. Unfortunately for us, we do run into one. And we still have about as much equity as you could hope to have when you get in against a guy with trips. You know what I mean? Flush draw's got some damn equity, that's for sure. I mean, we have more equity with a flush draw than we do with aces. Getting in with aces, we have 2 outs. That's a pretty rough case. But yeah, I'm fine with the shove there. It's a spot where he's just not going to have that many 6x combos, and we can get it in good. We can get it in against worse flush draws some percent of the time, and we have a coin flip against a jack, and he does have just a good bit of jack X combos there as well. So we're really just in poor shape when he has exactly a 6, and we have about as much equity as we could hope to have when our opponent has a hand that strong. So I like shoving. I don't think checking ends up being very good with his stack size, and the turn gets really weird to play because of the fact that he's short. Just kind of, and if you bet the flop, you could definitely make a case for betting a smaller amount, but he's going to shove, and we're going to have to call whenever he has us beat anyway. So we might as well just go ahead and shove ourselves, try to get him to fold some slightly better hands. That's a spot where maybe we get lucky and it folds a hand like pocket 7s. I would assume that he never does. If I had a gun to my head, I would say that we're never getting a fold from pocket 7s. But I can't tell you exactly how that dude's going to play. He might actually fold pocket 7s. And of course we fold some other remedial hands in his range. We have the limp in, and we are done. We got no equity, we got no nothing. Oh man, we're down $12 at this table. Down a buy-in at 10 and L. What kind of life am I living? We are going to fold and let these dudes do battle. And we are just going to go ahead and screw off on this turn card as well. We're down 79 cents. To be fair, we haven't had much go our way in this session. But that's the way poker works. You just have to keep playing your best. You have to let go of the idea that if you play a hand and you make a mistake, that means that you're a terrible player and that you're just, you're a complete loser at poker and that there's no hope for you and all these other crazy negative things. And that's why tilt is so insane and it screws you so hard, because that's often how people feel. They lose a couple of hands and then they just go like fucking haywire. They just go like mentally just berserk. When in reality, you let it go. You let it just slide off of a waterfall somewhere in your mind while you're chilling out in a field full of motherfucking chocolate-ass Easter egg bunny type things and flowers and maybe like the Quaker Oats guy. And he's... Never mind, I was going to say... Forget it. Anyway, so, you just let the variance go and you just keep grinding. Like, you just keep playing your best. Like, instead of handling variance by getting angry because you lost or you feel entitled or whatever the pain is that you're feeling, look at it as an opportunity to play your best in the very next hand when you know that other players that were just experiencing, or just, another player that experiences what you've just experienced, those players are going to be in way worse shape if they're dealing with it emotionally like that, and you handle it very, very well. And you handle it by just playing your best, putting mistakes aside to review, and just going from there. So we've got the best hand here a lot of the time, and we're just going to go ahead and raise it up. If somebody's slow playing pocket 4s or pocket 9s, that kind of blows. But that guy can have anything. There's so many Broadway cards here, and just calling doesn't really do much for us because we don't want them to realize their equity. And on a third card that connects with that board, you're not going to know if they've hit their draw or if they just have a pair now, and you can get yourself in some pretty tricky spots. So a good way to not be in tricky spots would be to avoid tricky spots. And, if we raise that flop and then we get shoved on, I think we can probably just make a case for folding. I don't think I would be calling in that scenario, but I also don't think that I'm going to be exploited in a sense that whenever my opponent does shove on the flop or does re-raise me, I think he's doing so the vast majority of the time with hands that beat me. It's only if he's doing it with hands that are, you know, losing to me. If he's doing it with really low equity hands, then that hurts me. You know, that's going to make things rough for us. So this is kind of an interesting spot here. She leads out 10 cents with $1.60 back. I think we're just going to pot it as if she didn't, because letting them all realize their equity with straight draws and stuff is kind of ridiculous, and we're getting it in against them anyway. So we're stuck against Jack X here, whatever it is. We're going to need a 9, a spade, a king, anything. Jesus. All right. Night of the Living Jack Sevens. But yeah, so, you know, you just kind of let all the variance slide right off your back. Just go right back to playing your A game as if it never happened. And if you made a mistake, and you made like a severe mistake, then you have something to learn from, and that's awesome. Because how the hell else are you going to learn if you're not making mistakes? Here we have a gutter, but this guy's betting, and this guy's short, and we're kind of squeezed in the middle like a fucking... Never mind, forget that too. We're just going to pass on that spot. And right here we get the 10-6 of spades. We're going to pass on that spot in the small blind with a dominated hand and flush draw. Out of position to everybody and their brother. And if you're out there and you're thinking, but there's trip 10s on the flop. Shut up, dummy. It's not about what was on the flop. It's about what the correct play was pre-flop. And you don't want to really be calling very loosely or much at all in the small blind, especially with hands that aren't really good implied odds hands. You think so because, hey, I could make a straight or I could make a flush with this. Yeah. And when you start to play a bigger pot, you're going to get your ass kicked because your opponent's just going to have better hands. They're going to have position. And you're going to be sitting here floundering around trying to play 10-6 of spades from the small blind. And you're going to wonder why you always get yourself in tough spots and you always end up spewing a bunch of chips. You never figure out what the hell is happening. You're putting yourself in a situation. I'm not saying that you shouldn't embrace difficult spots in poker. I'm just saying that you shouldn't needlessly put yourself in spots where you're going to have to play with a lot of guesswork and very difficult spots with very marginal hands. Is your opponent bluffing or isn't he? If you have a much weaker hand, you can fold it or turn it into a bluff. If you have a much stronger hand, you can call, you can raise, you can slow play it. You can do all kinds of shit. Call, slow play, bam. Raise, fast play, bam. So the top end of your range ends up kind of balancing itself out because you just call. And then the middle parts and the lower parts of your range are just kind of incentivized to do different things. Sometimes they just want to be turned into a bluff. Sometimes they just want to be bet thinly and then checked back on the next street. So it's kind of important for you to get a good feel for what's happening and why. What are the dynamics like at the table? Is it people 3-betting a lot? Or is it like abstract raise sizings pre-flop? I mean, what exactly is going on? I mean, if you're at a table where no one ever squeezes from the blinds, then you can flat the button like a nutcase and just bluff raise post-flop, float post-flop. You can really abuse position in single raise pots if your opponents allow you to get to the flop. Take another game where you flat the button and your opponents are 3-betting you every other hand. Now you have to take hands out of your flatting range, and then you have to take hands from your 3-betting range and add them to your flatting range. So let's say you're flatting all the way down to garbage like 2-3 suited. Now you got to get rid of all the 2-3s and the 3-4s and the 4-5s, and you got to basically flat less if you're flatting gappers, like maybe you're flatting 9-7 suited. You really got to tighten up the range of hands that you're flatting. Then you have to take some of your strongest hands, like the occasional ace-king or the ace-queen, and then the pocket kings and the pocket aces. And those hands are the hands that you want to flat and then back raise somebody to kind of protect the fact that you have to flat with all these other hands. But again, we're talking about in a perfect world where the rake allowed players to play, and, you know, the bottom line is that as you move up in stakes, you're playing against better players. They're going to be squeezing more often. They're going to be coming after the blinds more often. There's a lot of value in not showing down your hand. There really is a lot of value in not having to show your opponent the winning hand. You just bluff him off of his possibly winning, but most likely losing hand. And the way you do that is you learn board texture. You get good, you get efficient at reading hands, knowing what hands want to go in what range on what board texture, whether a hand is incentivized to do one thing or the other, before you even get to any bit of the exploitative reads. then you start getting to exploitative reads. What does a check mean for this player? When he checks, does he have a slow play range? Does he have a call river range when he checks on the flop or the turn? And if these things are one way, then you do what makes the most sense to make the most chips off of that. Pretty solid board texture for us. A lot of the time, yeah, he's going to 3-bet with his ace-king, so we're going to go ahead and c-bet. You still want to protect your hand from all the floats here with the ace-10s and the ace-jacks and the 9-10s and the jack-9s. There's so many gut shots on that board. It's fucking bananas, dude. That's what's important. You know, a lot of people, again, they don't think about things from a combinatorial perspective. They look at that spot and they say, oh, man, he can totally have 2-pair. So I guess I better check my ace-king. No, dummy. You don't want to check your ace-king because he also has all of those queens and all of the worst kings. And he has some 3x combos and he has a bunch of straight draws, gut shots, backdoor flush draws. Now here, we don't have a redraw and we have a pretty terrible hand on a board texture where our opponent is going to interact at a high frequency. Therefore, we're just going to check our ace-high back and give up. And on this turn card, we are just going to give up because he has every 9 in the deck, and credibly so. We're not going to be able to get the showdown. We don't have a spade to bluff with later. Just, it's rancid. Now over here, we have top pair with almost no kicker, and it makes a lot more sense to just go ahead and check. If that guy bets and the other guy folds, we can decide what we want to do. But as you can see, we get to use the relative position of this guy betting and that guy jamming to go ahead and fold his hand. And even if they end up showing us worse hands, just keep in mind that that doesn't mean that it wasn't still the correct fold, because that doesn't mean that the portion of their range that you didn't see isn't going to put it so that it's not a spot where you want to be stacking off. In the hand in question, they had fucking aces and a flop straight. Good God. That's crazy. That's just plumb crazy, man. And aces are probably like, rigged, rigged, rigged. This shit is rigged. I just got shot in the head. If you guys have not seen the Rotten Fruit Claymation, I would suggest that you do so. I would suggest that you go to YouTube right now, you scamper, skedaddle your little monkey asses out of here right now, pause this fucking video. I'm just kidding, don't go anywhere, don't go anywhere. Stay right here with me. Sit on my lap and call me Santa. We're about to finish this video in a few minutes, and we're going to go to part 3. Remember, guys, I apologize for part 1 being fucked up and only having one table. We'll make sure that the rest of the videos aren't like that. If you guys are looking for any personal coaching, if you like any of the yammerings that you've seen on here, you've heard, then you can get in touch with me either on Twitch TV. My name on there is Ming the Merciless 93, where I stream poker and teach poker. And you could also contact me on Twitter at Emperor Ming 93. And you're also going to be able to book coaching from there. You can send me a direct message and talk to me. Talk to me, baby. Talk to me. Yes, fancy. Fantastic. 2-8 down the drain. King 3 also down the drain. Bum, 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 bum. We got a min raise. I don't know what that means. Trying to mean like, hey, I have a 5. But maybe it's just like ace 3 trying to get to showdown. Ace 3 with that limit play. Get shoved on, and let's see if he's going to min raise call. Nope. He was just play pimping. We have 5-9 suited on the button. Not really too many ways we're going to play this. I do think we will raise the button, though. If it did not fold to us, we'd be folding mostly. You could definitely 3-bet a reg in the cutoff or something like that. That's perfectly fine. But you could also use a slightly better combo than a triple gapper and just have... Like, this is a 3-bet from a polarized range. And if you had a linear range, you'd be 3-betting like 7-8 suited. So it kind of depends on how you're constructing your range. And I think that it's better to have a linear range in games where the rake is high, because it's more valuable for you to take the pot down without ever having to see a flop, without ever having to see a showdown. Just win the pot. So we don't have a diamond here, so we're not going to be continuing a ton of the time. The 10 does have a reasonable blocker, but your opponent's calling frequency should be relatively high, and we do have ace high, so we're just going to check back. We get there in a sense that we beat all the 10x combos, but we're still losing to flushes. We still have to bet and protect our equity, because if the guy is just sitting there with deuces with a diamond, then he has a decent amount of equity with that diamond. We also might get some calls from the 10x combos if they decide to check because they're scared of the flush draw. Or the flush rather, and not to mention the times he actually has a 10 and he has the flush. Same thing if he has the ace of diamonds in its hand. Like, if we're chopping and he has ace-10, we don't have any of the diamonds, so he could have the diamond combos. That's fucking terrible, Chuck. That's terrible for us. Okay, guys, we're going to stop the video, and I'll see you guys in part 3 for 20NL. Catch you on the flip side.